Welcome to our podcast series on the future of procurement. My name's James Marland, VP of Network Growth at SAP, and I've got with me Andrew Bartolini, a managing partner at Ardent Partners. Andrew, last time we were speaking, we talked a lot about innovation in procurement. Why is that so important? Is procurement changing a lot these days?
So innovation. So fantastic question. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me first, James. Innovation has simply become much more than a buzzword, right? We see innovation in industries like consumer electronics, right? Market leaders shift to market laggards and can become irrelevant in the matter of one or two business cycles, one or two product releases. This puts procurement at the front of business as you start to think about the relationships that it must manage on the supply side, in particular. With fast-moving competitive markets, many supply markets, not just simply the consumer electronics markets, are evolving at a much more rapid pace. This means that category managers, sourcing managers, chief procurement officers, and along down the line must be much more vigilant as to the shifts in those specific supply markets. And so it's capturing innovation that exists outside the four walls of the enterprise and bringing it back in and building relationships with those most likely to develop innovation.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that I think that I maybe can manage innovation on my own timescale, but I'm not really in control of this. Innovation is happening maybe at a faster rate in my supply base, so I'll be able to reach out and reap the innovation that's going on in my supply chain.
I think absolutely right. So what this has done, right? So no company can afford to go it alone anymore. Companies have become simply much more reliant upon their supply chains to drive business value. The market opportunities to charge premiums for a company's products and services is a much collapsed window than in decades, than in years past. And so organizations just must remain more agile and to make decisions that happen in the midst of a business cycle, not simply at the beginning and the end of a business cycle. Organizations have to be much more focused and closer to their suppliers.
So when we talk about how a enterprise can get closer to its suppliers, how can technology play a role in that?
Right, fantastic question, right? I think that technology plays a key if you were to rewind the clock back to the late 90s when we had sort of the second drive of procurement innovation, right? The first levels of innovation began with strategic sourcing in the 70s and 80s. The rise of technology to automate procurement processes, to automate strategic sourcing processes, to be able to grab and aggregate data, the spend data that provides visibility, really became the catalyst to this next move, where you have a chief procurement officer, key point of contact, leading procurement organizations at about 90% of organizations, a role that simply didn't exist for most companies a decade ago. Technology now serves as the underpinning. If you were to consider the past 15 years, wave one of the supply management or spend management or procurement automation move, we're now at phase two, where the connectivity that procurement organizations have with their suppliers that enable nearly frictionless transactions, that enable collaboration, that enable communication, that enable the aggregation of data in centralized points, really drives what really sets the table for the next level or the next wave of opportunity.
So it sounds though what you're saying is that collaboration is one of the keys to working better with innovative suppliers, and collaboration is much more than just documents and transmission, which is almost becoming table stakes now, sending a purchase order, getting invoices, but it's really a way of managing a knowledge ecosystem with my suppliers. So I need collaboration around supplier profiles, supplier capabilities, supplier management, online contracts, all these things are much more than just a straight document.
That's right. I think procurement, for a large segment of each organization's supply base, procurement has to shift its mindset from looking at their suppliers as simply vendors and starting to look at them as partners or otherwise assets that have value, right? So when you think about the largest asset that we all own, right? For most people, it's their home. And what you do over the course of owning your home is you maintain it, right? You paint it every every number of years. You do landscaping. You ensure that the value is maintained, and then you invest in it. Okay, maybe we're going to put on a back deck and add more value to it. Taking the same concept is the way that procurement should be thinking about, not every supplier, right? There are some technical suppliers. There are the suppliers that you just want to have straightforward transactions, and you have one-off suppliers. But for the suppliers that are going to drive greater value for your companies, for your enterprises going forward, you need to invest in those relationships. And the first step in investing is making sure that the basic tactical communications and conversations are simplified, right? That organizations aren't calling in to your accounts payable office and struggling to find out if or when they're going to get paid, right? Remove all of that noise, and that allows you to then get into more proactive conversations that start talking about business goals and objectives that you and your organization have over the next 3 to 5 years, and getting alignment from suppliers, getting them also vested in working with you on those goals and objectives.
So that's interesting what you say about I am unable to have a deep relationship with my suppliers if I'm doing the basic stuff wrong.
That's
So
right.
if they're having a tough time understanding when they're going to get paid, or we're losing their orders, then it becomes more difficult to have a strategic conversation on how we could co-design a product or go to market. And they're going to say, "Hey, we're not ready for that. You don't even pay the bills on time."
Right.
So this basic automation is a prerequisite before I can do these more advanced collaborative things that will drive innovation.
I think absolutely right. I mean, as you continue to look at the increase in competition in many markets, right? You no longer want your company, your enterprise, to be that high cost problematic customer, right? You want to be the customer of choice for your suppliers as well, and particularly your strategic suppliers. And if they're the basic buyer supplier relationship, right, starts at a negotiation point, right? And that's often viewed as a net sum conversation. It becomes difficult to move beyond that if you're still struggling to manage the basic transactions and the basic communications, right? So technology provides you know, cost efficiencies on the buy side, but there is a win-win here from the supplier side as well, who oftentimes struggle with just not understanding where an invoice may be in the process, and when they are likely to get paid.
Okay, so maybe the last topic on this area of innovation is thinking about the workforce of the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we hear a lot these days about millennials and Generation X's and so on. So what does it mean to engage with the new workforce of the future? How do they work differently, and how can they maybe drive innovations in my business? Or as a procurement guy, how do I have to retool my operations to work with the next generation of procurement professionals?
Right. It's a fantastic question, because it becomes a very important consideration for heads of procurement and chief procurement officers to understand the shift in the workplace that has occurred over the past. I guess it's probably occurred over the last 20 years, but people who are graduating from university today, it's very it's highly unlikely that they will spend the next 30 years working for a single employer and
So
retire.
no gold watch.
No
Then.
gold watch at the end of that rainbow. What this means for leaders of procurement organizations is that they have to understand that the average job tenures have collapsed pretty dramatically, and that if the average job tenure is somewhere in the 3 to 4 year time frame, that means that over that same period of time, you're getting a high degree of turnover within most sourcing and procurement teams. Organizations have to begin to ensure that every time a resource leaves the organization, that they don't take the entirety of the knowledge that they have either brought to the organization initially or developed while they were there, right? This starts at sourcing projects, right? If someone leaves in the midst of a large strategic sourcing initiative, you have to be able to maintain them, continue the project, maintain the momentum, and we think that systems that that capture knowledge, that codify processes, that standardize processes become important, not simply from an efficiency standpoint. They drive efficiencies and there's ROIs you can make in a very straightforward way, simply on transactional efficiencies and driving greater throughput. But you need to also be thinking about how you capture and maintain the information if you have a high employee cycle turnover.
Yes, it's interesting. I think I read a stat recently that the average tenure is 3.8 years. Well, my average procurement contract may be 3 to 5 years. So it's
Mhm.
quite likely that each time I'm resourcing a category, the guy who originally sourced it's no longer with the company.
That's right.
And
You can't afford to reinvent the wheel, right? I mean, with procurement organizations being tasked with doing more, right? So, and this is coming from several points in the organization, right? So procurement's own mission is to place more spend under its influence, to do more with the opportunities that exist within the organization today, right? So they're taking on more spend simply as just sort of the basic procurement job description. They're also being tasked with taking on and driving other initiatives like supply risk, like accounts payable, broader initiatives like contingent workforce management, like business travel. All of these areas, require time, effort, and resources. And as the organizations, eh, with this responsibility doesn't come, just full head count and very very easily fully staffed, right? You have to be efficient, you have to be smart, and automating, something like the sourcing process and capturing that information so that on the next, capturing the information today so that when the contract is due and you're set to source it again, you're starting, 70, 80% down the road, right? And the sourcing cycles are going to start to collapse for the same reasons we talked about earlier with product innovation and just opportunities happening at a much faster pace in the marketplace.
yeah, I was speaking to the CPO of SAP just recently, and he said that procurement departments who do well, are rewarded with more work, not more people, and so it becomes very much a do more with less. You said that procurement is now reaching out into other areas, and so the old driver of savings, maybe not the right way to look at this. It's more like looking at the opportunity cost of taking efficiencies and then being able to automate certain of my processes so I can now apply professionals to these new areas of responsibilities that I have.
I think absolutely right. I mean, I think that the doing more with less is really become, do better with same, right? It's standard operating procedure today to be understaffed, right? When we do our research and interview chief procurement officers, top of the list of their challenges is talent. That's a constraint from a headcount standpoint, and that's a constraint from an actual skill set standpoint. So organizations have to be smarter with what it is that they're doing. That often starts with visibility, and that's really driven forward by doing what you're doing today efficiently and doing that in a standardized way, doing that in an automated way, so that you can take, I mean, as you just said, right? So there is an opportunity cost for every project that you take on is one that you ultimately
Right,
are
right.
leaving to the side for that period of time. Um, so absolutely, I would agree with what Marcel told you.
Okay, so wrapping it up really here. So the key to innovation is collaboration, and the key to collaboration is focusing very much on the supplier relationships, taking care of the basic transactions, so we can invest further in suppliers. Thanks very much, Andrew, and
My pleasure.
we'll have another of these podcasts on later.